A lot of these art installations that you see were actually put in the 1930s, and they have a lot of like weird cryptic sayings on them that look like they should be Zeppelin lyrics. The night has 1,000 eyes. Benedict, Benedict, Benedict.
Several bad puns later.
Hey, it's Jon Smith from 103.5 The Arrow here in Salt Lake City for another cool stuff in Utah. Today, we're right across the street from Westminster College. We are at Allen Park, or as the urban legend would have called it, Hobbitville. So Allen Park, for the first time since 1961, is open to the public. Set on 7 acres of land bought in the 1930s by Dr. George Allen, president of the Utah Zoology Society. At one point, this had over 700 different kinds of birds and small animals, many of which ended up at Tracy Aviary or Hogle Zoo. To help maintain the cost and the upkeep of the land, the Allens hired some private contractors to build some smaller houses so as not to obscure the landscape. That would kind of supplement the income and pay for the park. And when I say small, these were small by even 1940 standards. So I brought along my fellow Utah history nerd, my friend Mike here. He's been in here quite a few times over the years to help out. And he knows a lot more about Allen Park than I do.
Here, they brought them in from Kennecott. They were actually the miners' houses out at Kennecott back in the 40s, I believe it was, and they moved them up here and provided a place for people to stay in the park.
So in 1961, George Allen passes away and the park was closed to the public. And that's when the urban legends started to begin. So the Hobbitville thing started sometime around the 1970s. At least that's the earliest mention I could find of it on the interweb. So the urban legends that we used to hear in the 80s and 90s were that because of the small houses and because of the secretive nature of the Allen Park area, it was rumored that it was inhabited completely by little people. In order to escape the giants of the 5-foot-tall and taller world, built an entire town to scale so that they could have their own little private land. None of this, by the way, is true. This is all urban legend. So people would hop the fence at night and dare each other to sneak in to Hobbitville, and then the inhabitants, the townspeople, would chase you out. I got chased out of here in the mid-90s somewhere. It wasn't by a little person, though. It was some big fat dude with a beard. So if you ever snuck into Allen Park and got chased out, that guy would be Glenn. Big guy, wielding a stick, swearing a lot. He yelled a lot of swear words at me. Glenn was married to Ruth. Ruth is George's granddaughter. So Allen Park remained closed to the public from 1961 until earlier this year. In fact, the park opened to the public just a few weeks ago. Even though Allen Park was closed to the public, there were still people living here until it was bought by the city in the year 2020. Amy Allen, who is the daughter of Ruth and George Allen, who were the originators of the property, still lived here until she died. After she died, the property went up for sale. It was purchased by Salt Lake City for $7.5 million. Now, the cool thing about that is that they've kept the property almost as it was. They've cleared out a lot of debris, a lot of junk, but the buildings and the dwellings on the property remain as they were the day that the city bought it. We kind of get a look at what was off limits for so many years. It's cool that they've left a lot of it. For me, I love seeing history like as it was left. I've got this fascination with like abandoned buildings. We had wanted to come in here when we started the Cool Stuff series. We talked about coming in here and we were getting ready to contact the city to get permission. And then I see that, just a couple of weeks ago that it was actually open to the public. So anybody can come in here now and kind of look around. It's absolutely gorgeous in here. I could see why people would want to live in here. I can imagine, being surrounded by the cool birds and stuff like that and all of the cool artwork. Mike actually met Glenn a couple of times, and Glenn walked him through here with permission on a couple of times and was able to tell you a little bit about some of the problems that they had with renting out the properties, right?
The issues of having the small houses that had kind of fallen into disrepair, but the urban legend certainly didn't help. Constantly having high school, college kids coming up here, knocking on people's windows, running through the yards, kind of scared some of the people away, unfortunately. And I think that was kind of the cycle that they ended up seeing was, we can't get anybody to rent, so we can't maintain the properties, and now we can't get people to rent because the properties are run down. So it certainly was an issue.
So this is where the caretaker lived. He lived upstairs, and he would run down and chase people out. Rather than call the cops, right? Just grab a stick. Don't be that guy. So there you go. That's Allen Park, now open to the public for the first time since 1961. Corner of 13th and Westminster. That's probably the best place to park. There's not a whole lot of parking in the area. So my big thanks to my fellow history enthusiast Mike, who's been into Allen Park several times over the years as a guest, and was able to kind of tell us some of the backstories. And of course, you should come on by and check it out. If there's something you want to see on Cool Stuff in Utah, like it, subscribe to it, and make sure you comment below on places that you want to see on Cool Stuff in Utah. See you next time!